Hey everybody, it's Andre with the Crew Process, and I'm here with a long-term digital friend, Shawn Peers, from Dental Peers, and wanted to catch up with him. We've been friends on Facebook forever. We've been social media friends, but I wanted to get a face-to-face and kind of, I've been using this time. I always use the time from December to March to catch up with folks who I've known over the years, and we wanted to kind of talk about work-life balance because that's a passion we both have. So Shawn, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and then we'll dig into the topic.
Hey, Andre, yeah, great to actually put this into a face-to-face conversation in 2D, 3D would be better, but maybe someday we'll actually pull that one off too.
Yeah.
So I'm up in Ottawa, Canada, so the frozen Great White North, and I'm a recovering lawyer. I practiced law for 14 years and did a lot of work with dentists, use that knowledge of sort of their legal needs to go into different directions. Went back to school, got an MBA, and now I work with dentists to put in private practice to put together sort of a group purchasing organization, give them a little bit of negotiating and buying power that typically gets kind of reserved for the DSO world.
Mhm.
And I try to encourage dentists to look at dentistry from a little bit of a different mindset as well. I'd like them to think that, you can really achieve a lot by taking on the right mindset of a CEO and approach your business with a view to how it fits into your total life, knowing that you can't do it all yourself. So what does the CEO do to learn to balance their lives effectively?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I back in 2001, I think it was, I started a company with a periodontist and a couple other folks in the dental world called Dental Life. So the L was shared, so Dental Life. And it was
Right.
one of the first like online message board prior to, Dental Town and all those kind of things. And we worked on a concept like that where it was, how do we work on getting you out of the dental practice? Unless you love dentistry, some people do. But how do we
Yep.
get it to the point where it's something where we love what we do, and dentistry is a big part of that. So it's a big passion of mine. So, well, when I started my first consulting business, one of the first things that I did was I realized very early on that if I'm going to do everything, then if I drop dead, I don't have a business. And then somebody handed me the book, The E-Myth.
Hmm.
And that confirmed that idea of what you just talked about is, if you can't step away from your business, what kind of business do you actually have? You know?
And I mean, people just you overcommit to so many different things when you're going to try to do it all yourself. Because I mean, we're just as talented as we like to believe we are, and we do have many talents. We don't have the time to necessarily develop all of them to their full potential, and it just becomes nothing but stress to try.
Yeah. Uh, You know, I always remember a client calling me one day and saying something to the effect of, I'm going to have to cancel a couple of patients because, I got to get my dog walked. He was locked in the house. And I remember saying, hey, I'll stop by your house and walk the dog. And I realized I've lost myself in the business. I'm not even a dog person.
Well, I mean, I love dogs, but I mean, there has to be a little bit of a balance on that front for sure. And I mean, I get it in general. I mean, I even remember, in earlier stages with the business, trying to look for different ways to keep in communication with my members. And it's like I'm going to do a newsletter, and hey, there's all these great templates that I can use. I'll just do it myself. Well, when you're only using that software once a month to do a monthly newsletter, you sit there and you go, how did I do that again?
Yeah.
And what takes someone who's experienced with it mere seconds, you're sitting there and it takes you like 3 to 4 hours to put this newsletter together. And it's after about 3 months, you're like suddenly going, oh, I'm gonna have to put it off. It'll be a little bit late because and then it just stops happening. And it was like, you know what? I need a virtual assistant for this.
So how do we quantify that? How do we find that line in the sand that we shouldn't cross? I mean, I don't know for you, but my prior to dental life was I have a degree in art, so I fall back to writing that newsletter. I fall back to creating there's practices all over the country that I've created their logos because I fell back to that. How do you fall back from answering a legal question? I mean, how do you create that balance? How do you find that?
I mean, that one's pretty easy in the sense that somebody comes to me as sort of a former lawyer and they ask me a legal question. I look at it and sort of think they might actually be relying upon me for this. So if I give them the wrong advice because I'm not up on the law, they what happens if they sue me?
This is true.
I mean, people probably aren't going to sue you for a logo they don't like, but
I don't know.
maybe they might. Maybe
We
they
did some
might.
bad ones back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. But I've found that part hasn't been a challenge for me because I just look at it and say, "Look, I don't have a license. I can't really go down this path with you." And it's pretty simple for me to say, I still know the basics, but I really haven't been involved in this for years. So you don't want to take legal advice from me at this point in the game.
Yeah. I always try to point my doctors back to something. You can see in my office, I've surrounded myself with, Star Wars stuff. And I always like have to have something that I point back to people and saying, if you play golf, put St. Andrews up on the wall, put Pebble Beach up on the wall. So you can constantly look at it. If you raise horses, make sure those are up on the wall. You know, I always want them to have some, people talk, vision boards and stuff like that. But sometimes there's too much information there. If there's just a picture of Tahiti on the wall and you see it on a regular basis to get your focus back on how can I get out of here, make sure there are pictures of your children in your office so you can see those things so you know what's important. Dentistry is a great income, but it shouldn't be the world to most of the people we work with on a daily basis, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I remember this one dentist that I worked with a number of years ago, and he had, he was very physically active, not in a big sports fan, but not in the sort of traditional football, hockey, baseball. He was more into hiking and cycling and these kinds of activities for himself personally. So each operatory had the decor to go with that kind of a theme. So there'd be like this was the cycling operatory, this was the hiking operatory, and pictures and stuff like that that would remind him of that. Plus, it was sort of a neat conversation piece for the patients as well to come in and see this and ask questions and help to develop that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a client, one of my first clients that I ever worked with in the dental field. I walked into his office and he said, "Come on down. I'm driving balls. I want you to see this." And I went, "What are you talking about?" And he had an entire driving range in his office, um, shower facility because he had a workout room. He had a fireplace in his office. And I said, "Do you actually do any dentistry here? Because this looks like the best place to work out." But, that was a guy who, I worked with him when he retired. He said, really, my goal is to get out of here. I want to, go do some other things. I've got, I love scuba diving. I love playing golf. I love, playing in a band. How do I get out of the practice? And that was the first time I saw somebody who had that work-life balance thing to the point where they knew what was important and dentistry was a tool to get them there. Do you run into that?
And I do run into it from time to time, but unfortunately not as often as I would like to.
Yeah.
I find dentists have a tendency, as many professionals do, to their identity becomes so tied in with their professional designation,
Yeah.
and it becomes everything about who they are, and it consumes them.
Yeah.
And I think, we're seeing more and more stories with respect to levels of dental burnout. I mean, dentistry has always been stressful. But now we're sort of acknowledging this level of burnout, I think, as the demands for, okay, how are you going to market your dentistry? How are you going to manage the human resources in your dentistry? Issues become more and more complicated. And dentists have to spend that much more time, even if it's not the clinical side, but still immersed in their business and
Yeah.
immersed in that side of who they are. And I mean, what I love about that client with the driving range and everything like that is I actually try to steer clear of the concept of work-life balance
Yeah.
because I don't like the separation. I just believe in balance.
Yeah.
And I for me, I just get this feeling that if we're focused on this idea of work-life balance, does that mean I behave differently in the work environment than what I do outside of it?
Yeah.
I want my behavior to be consistent along both. I want people to understand that balance gets created often by your mental mindset and your ability to be kind to yourself and kind to others. So bring kindness into all of that, and that helps you to achieve a better sense of balance overall.
Yeah. I I try to live that life every year, every week, every day. And one of the things that I adopted years ago was just because of the way I was raised, my religious background, I take a technology break every week. And that has been one of those things where it forces me to slow down. All right. Although my work is my fun. I mean, I love what I do and I enjoy what I do. So they're again, they mix so well. But it forces me also to just get off of Facebook, to get off of Instagram and those things and ignore the text coming in and just take the time to say, you know what, reset and start again. I do that during the winter months because again, can't fly as much as I do normally. So I take that time off to say, you know what, I'll give American a break. They can have my seat for a little while, and then I'll come back in March to that. But it is. I love the way you put it. It shouldn't be a balance. It should be gray. It shouldn't be black and white. It should be gray, and you should see that on a daily basis, and it should mix back and forth. Shades of gray. That's kind of the way I see it in life too. So, uh,
And I love that idea that you just said, like, I love my work. That's great, but I still need a break from it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't care how much you love something. I mean, I'm Canadian. I love hockey. Every once in a while, I still want to watch another sport.
No, and we'll diverge for 1 second. I was a season ticket holder for the minor league team here outside in Philadelphia, and I loved the game. I can't follow sports. If that's a weird thing, it's like I love Formula One, but I can't tell you any of the drivers' names. I love watching the game again because it's just a distraction, but I couldn't tell you anybody, if you said whose team is in Montreal, maybe I could give you that one. But most of it is a stretch. I could tell you, I couldn't tell you any players.
Yeah, I mean, once upon a time when we were perhaps a little bit younger, I could probably have reamed off a lot more of that than I can at this point in time. Um, Too much going on, information overload, only so much fits into my brain. So, you
But
kind of,
But that's a good work-life balance because that is work to keep track of the stats and the players and all that. And then you don't
yep.
enjoy the game anymore because you're like, how many goals did he get? How long does this guy have penalties versus that guy? You no longer are involved in the enjoyment of the game. And that's where that back to our topic of work-life balance, where that goes out of kilter and we're not enjoying our lives.
No, no, you have to recognize that, too much of a good thing is still going to be a problem, and to have that balance. I mean, you're in an area where you'll experience some cold weather as well as we do up here in Canada. I mean, sometimes obviously it can be too cold, but sometimes like just going out for that walk to clear your air on a cool, crisp, fresh evening. You dress for it so you're not cold. I mean, what does that do for your mindset? What
Yeah.
does that do for ability to just kind of reset, refocus, and just be able to recognize, okay, what is important? All this stuff that I did during the day, yes, it is important, but you know what? So is this break, so is this cool air,
Yeah.
so is the sleep it will help me get.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that is the great divider between everybody. Those people who can break from life for the moment are the people who live longer. The studies about people who live to 100 plus, they're the ones who take time with the life. They're the ones who eat slowly. They're the ones who enjoy it. You have your drink, your glass of wine, not in excess, but those are the
Mhm.
people who live forever. They really do. So, and
100%, yeah.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to get together and do this. And, it's good we see each other on a monthly basis, in the Hollywood squares of Zoom calls. And then we see each other on Facebook. But it's good to connect and have some time to talk.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the opportunity to put the voice and everything together and spend a little bit of time, getting to know you through something that wasn't just a comment or a post on Facebook or something like that.
This is true. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to catch up with you?
All they have to do is just drop me an email at Shawn, SHAWN, at DentalPeers.ca. Happy to take a phone call or text too. Just send it up to 613-867-8502. Happy to help. just sort of get a different perspective on how they can how they can review their time and learn to delegate and get that opportunity to create that better balance for themselves.
Awesome. Good to talk to you, and I really appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Stay warm.
I'm piece of cake. You know me, I'm Canadian. I love it.
You used to it. Take care.
Thanks, Andre.